Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Off Air podcast with myself, Joe Parkhouse. With me today, of course, returning for a third or maybe fourth stint now is Sean Skur. Hello, Sean, and Nigel Seeger as well. Welcome, Nigel.
Oh yeah.
And of course, today we're going to be going over everything that's happened since our last podcast. This is going to actually include our Gateshead review as well. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend the game. However, if you were listening along like myself, you will have noticed that Sean was commentating that game, the main commentator for that game, and Nigel was also in attendance, but not on the comms this time. He was in the crowd. So it'd be good to have two different angles, two different perspectives, learning about what happened at Gateshead. We're also going to cover every game since the previous podcast that we did. So that'll be Wrexham, Torquay, and Aldershot as well. And then we'll have a little look ahead to the month of September and how prosperous or non-prosperous that may potentially be for this Stones team. So getting into things, we'll kick things off with the Gateshead game. So I'll let you two really lead this bit, boys, because of course you two were in attendance. So let's see, what are your thoughts on the game? Obviously not a great result, but is there anything that we can maybe take from it, or is it just as bad as it seems?
Well, from our point of view, it was as bad as it seemed, really. I had great expectations when we went up there. I thought that we'd done the right things. We travelled up the night before and trained at Darlington the night before and the day before, sorry, on the Friday. But we just weren't at it. We just, it was kind of like Wrexham all over again, But obviously with the Wrexham game, they're a good side. They are one of the title favourites. But Gateshead, like ourselves, are a newly promoted side. They was North champions, so it was like the battle of the champions, really. And we just didn't turn up. I mean, they scored their goal in the first 10 minutes, getting a mistake for us. And I think all the goals really were mistakes. From our point of view, I don't know if anyone's ever seen any pictures of the Gateshead stand, but it's just two stands either side, and you're right up there in the gods, sort of looking down at it. It's not the best, but what you do get is you get an overall view of what's going on. So it just looks like you can see what's going to happen before it happens, sort of thing. Obviously, the players don't get that kind of view, but it was just like the shape wasn't right. It just didn't seem right. It was just long balls again. Long ball over the top, and the first goal, Joe let the ball bounce and the player just got on him. And although Joe does make a lot of last-ditch tackles, and he did in this game as well, but it only takes one mistake, and then you're a goal down within the first 10 minutes, and you're then chasing the game from that point of view, and from that point on, and it's you have to then work doubly as hard. So I don't know if you saw any different, Sean, from where you was, because obviously you was in the commentary box over on the other side. So
yeah, I was technically slightly loftier than thou, but technically, up in our space centre on the other side from you guys in the main homestand. I seem to recall saying on air that the best thing to happen in each half was probably the fact we were only 2-0 down at half time, and the fact that we were only 4-0 down with about 5 minutes to go. As you quite rightly say, Nigel, mistakes at the back. Joe threw clearly a lot of last-ditch tackles, but when you have to make 20 of them rather than 10, there's going to be a few in that second 10 that are going to fall foul and fall short, and he was at fault for the first one. George Fowler for the second one. He seemingly controlled the ball in the box, thinking he was Bruno Guimaraes, deciding to channel himself out of the box, and he instantly lost the ball the moment he got it. He was punished. It was put away by Blackett, who I will say was a great striker for them for the most part until he dived near the end. He had some very good finishing in that first half for them. So he was very clinical to punish our mistakes. Last season, whenever we made those mistakes, we weren't punished because it was a lesser level. This season, despite the fact they've come up with us, they've obviously had to tinker with their front line a bit because, of course, the pair of them that have gone to Notts County are, Haaland-esque banging in the goals in National League. They're going to cause a lot of defensive problems. So we spoke a few weeks back about Gateshead having to change. They have done. The style's pretty much still there. And I know you commented in your preview, Joe, you were thinking a draw would be a good result. Having had a chance to watch the Wrexham highlights on a very long drive up, then yes, that's I very much took your point and thought these guys are playing some tremendous football. They created loads of chances against Wrexham. So it was mostly Maidstone at the end of the day, was what the issue was. And again, Gateshead, they played so well at Wrexham, they merited the performance against Maidstone that then had a result as well. That was the thing I'd been lacking this season. But like Nigel said, the expectations were there. They trained, they got up their day before. You were expecting them to put up more fight than they did. And this was, the case of what we found on the way home when we bumped into them at the services, no more than an hour or so away from Gateshead from memory. And every single one of them, staff, players, all just completely negative and downbeat about the result, but at the same time acknowledging the fact openly to everybody there who had been supporting Maidstone, just knew that it wasn't good enough, and they were apologetic for it and just adamant they were going to make up for it next time. And that, although we've already had those words at Wrexham, and obviously we've bounced back, and I know we'll talk about that in a bit, for me, it's not as bad as it could be because we're a lot higher up the table than we could have been with some of the performances that we've had, and we've got results. We had that last season and we got a lot of points playing badly, but still churning out results like champions. We're clearly not going to be champions this season, but if you have champion-esque form in certain matches, then you're going to keep yourself a lot higher up the table. So as long as Maidstone are clear and far away from anywhere around the drop zone, then we should be fine. But the game yesterday at Gateshead was very frustrating. They'd apparently worked on some stuff, but frankly, out on the pitch, it didn't look like they'd remembered anything from the whiteboard and the little markers going around to see where everybody was going. Because my main concern, and I've said this several times now on this podcast, so I'm being consistent and everybody knows it. And I think I said it on air yesterday. If I didn't, I needed to. But it's the news that's come out this evening as well, of course, with Vincent going back to Pompey. We need balance in the back line for these things to solve themselves, these issues we've got, because Fowler keeps coming across as a centre-back, playing in his natural position, that, for my money, probably as good as Joe at all in the back line. Fowler was last season. If both of them are in that back line, then you could need Hoyt in his correct wing-back position, potentially even experimenting with Corley at left-back because he's left-footed. If not, then you've got Vincent, who's gone now, or another left wing-back to be brought in on loan or permanently for a free, whoever's out there, just to get that balance of that back four. Because I don't think the front six has got too much tinkering. Bivesh didn't have the best of games yesterday. A lot of stuff got through. But I just think they attacked in numbers, and Campbell was just an absolute wizard. He was like Lionel Messi just off the front too, just absolutely creating everything. And rightfully, he was man of the match for Gateshead yesterday, but that was exacerbated by the back line being completely muddled. Bivesh, sort of a bit after the Lord Mayor's show, after the last couple of performances he's had come in, because, starting 3 games in a row at his age, from what little time he had last season, that potentially showed us. And that, for me, just, played into Gateshead's hands. They were more in need of a result and of 3 points than we were. And that showed pretty much in every single department yesterday, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it didn't seem great. But yeah, Nigel, I was going to come to you anyway, so do continue.
I was going to say, I think that was highlighted with the first 2 goals. Joe Lord pulled out of position for that first goal, and whereas if George was playing in his natural centre-back position, he would have that yard and he'd be able to cut that goal off. But where he sort of spun Joe all around, Joe's got the football brain, he just beat him for pace and he was in on goal and there was no one there. And George was coming across to but too late. And then again with the second goal, like Sean said, and he said on commentary as well, George was just doing his natural position, but the ball sort of come to him too quickly, sort of thing, because Jack and Joe were in front of him as well, which they should have dealt with that before it got to him. So it's about trying to cut it off at source, really. I mean, that's the thing that I found most disappointing is that we're not counter punching. I mean, you're going to get shots. These are better quality teams. You're going to get periods of play where they have domination over you, where they're going to come in with 5, 10, 15-minute spells. But we're not doing anything to even that balance up. So, again, like yesterday, with a couple of free kicks on the edge of the area in the first half and a couple of corners, we're not making the most of them. We're not putting a quality ball in there. We're not winning the second balls in that area. It's all right having the best stats of your centre back, like fourth in the league, that's one of the most second balls, but he's doing it on the edge of his penalty area. You don't want that. You want that further up the field. You want to relieve that pressure at source before it gets to the defence, because it's just going to be wave after wave. And we are the fifth level of football. They are going to make mistakes. If they were faultless, they'd be playing at a much higher level. So it just. It was just all one-way traffic, and we just never seemed to be able to relieve that pressure.
Just to add to that, Nigel, as well, is I think the reason there wasn't as much counter-punch from Maidstone yesterday was the heads went down very early on. There wasn't that much talking. I think it's because the facility there was so cavernous, and if there was any shouting from the players, I don't know anybody would have heard it on either side. And then, just the heads were down. There was no reason for them to counter punch. It almost seemed like they were playing for time, getting through the match. The third goal again was just people switched off for 20 minutes to go. Short corners taken, and before you know it, Bosch, Ollie's floated one into the top corner. The last one again is fairly similar to the first one, but I think it's such a deep counter attack where Maidstone are, to their credit, even though it's 3-0 down at that point, trying to commit men forwards, try and get something back. They hit on the break, and I think it was 2 or 3 times before the goal as well. Either side of the third one going in was just Joe on his own and being outnumbered, and the ball it could have honestly been 10 with the amount.
And to be fair, he did make a couple of last-ditch tackles, but you can't keep doing that game on, game on. It's
exactly.
It was just disappointing after coming off the back of Wrexham, another long journey. And it happened again. But again, what also makes it frustrating is, and as Hack said in his post-match interview, we know we can win. We know we can match these teams, and we know that our game plan does work against these teams. So, it's just about getting that consistency. That is the key, isn't it?
And to say about Hack's post-match, I know pre-match he'd said as well that, he's got, and post-Wrexham as well, that we've got loads of experience in our squad. And I mean, I think you might have touched on the whole, is it to do with travelling up the night before? I mean, at the end of the day, he's got a load of ex-National League players in the squad. Yes, the club has Vanarama National League South experience these last 3 years that we've built up. But that entirety of its squad, especially adding Cody Lyons-Foster into the mix as well, we've got well over 1,000 National League appearances. So they should all be used to travelling past the Watford Gap. So for my money, travelling at any point is not an excuse. They should be ready. I read Craig Tucker's report and saying that it looked like they'd only got off the coach that morning. That's how lethargic they looked. And again, the pictures from the night before just belie that fact, don't they? Because they seem so fresh and zippy and ready for it, because I don't know how late in the evening that training session was. So I don't know whether that was potentially too late in the evening to do something, but they'll do it. You'll see it on Sky Sports News and other channels. They've got Champions League game tomorrow, so they're out on the turf the night before practicing, the sort of stuff you don't get from a league game, but you do get from, those international continental matches that they all have. So, it's trying to micro pick these things that it could be that's caused it. There's too much experience in that squad and in that staff.
That's right.
It's just the fact that they didn't stick to the game plan. That's the thing. It's nothing to do with travelling up too early, too late. No. They just didn't do what they were supposed to. And as soon as that plan A was out the window and the fact they conceded, they've just just didn't seem to be anything else. The substitutions that happened didn't affect the game at all. That's probably the first time in about 2 years, technically, for Hack and Terry, that he's made a substitution and it's not done anything, frankly. So yeah, there's a lot to work on. I'm glad they've got the extra day in tomorrow. But yeah, for my money, the travel issue isn't an issue. You know, the Watford gap's always been there, and we used to go there as a club, and all those players have been past it before. So yeah, not for me an excuse. And just my last word on Gateshead was, I'm just glad we're back home now.
Yeah, I mean, you say that about the travel. I mean, in theory, that should inspire them because you know I don't know many other clubs that they would have played for that would take over 100 fans up to Gateshead.
Yeah.
You know, so in a way that should inspire them to perform more because you've got something to, 100 people is not to disappoint. So you don't expect, they're not going to win all these games. It's a fact they're not going to win all these games, but just to show some sort of fight, lose 3-2 or something like that. You've put in an effort and you've been competitive in the game. That's all you want, really.
And that's the irony of it, because of course the last time we played Gateshead was a 3-2 defeat. We went 3-0 down. Didn't think we'd be showing any backbone, but then was it Cassidy and McLennan got us back into the game. We were still ranting and raving after that match. But when you look at that game in the light of yesterday's game, you sort of go, that 3-2 defeat wasn't that bad in that sense. That was a team that was already doomed and relegated, yet still tried to turn it back. It was the same number of goals, but the consolation was a lot later and much less celebrated. I don't know whether that's because there was a home away difference, because the other one was at home and the game come up and sucking the ball in, and away at Gateshead you just had the wind blowing through either side because there's nothing there and not any fans blowing anything out to make it work. So yeah, it's from a dead relegated side last time out to a side that should still have some confidence despite having the wind out the sails at Wrexham. And obviously what we'll talk about briefly, what happened after that. We should have been a lot better yesterday, but we just weren't.
Yeah, well, I think you've both covered Gateshead pretty extensively there. I mean, not too much to write home about in terms of performance or fight. The general consensus amongst the fan base from what I've seen, obviously I've spoken to you two and other people who were there, and there's a lot of people on the forums and things who did attend as well, which is good. But they all seem to be saying the same thing that you said about, we don't have to win every game. No one's expecting to win every game, but over 100 people made a 600-mile round trip and there wasn't any fight in the game. And, the preparation's there. You've been there, you're coming off the back of 2 wins. You've been there the day before, familiar with the surroundings. You should be able to put in a decent effort. Maybe not a decent performance, but a decent effort. And I think that is the thing that's kind of let the team down on these big away days so far, in terms of distance, not necessarily in terms of stature. Obviously, Gateshead aren't exactly on the scale of Wrexham at this moment in time, but maybe there is a bit of a travelling problem there in terms of how the players, register these kind of game plans and stuff that's set in place. But I'm sure we'll see over the coming month or two how that's going to affect us going forward. Obviously, we have spoken about Wrexham a little bit, so just quick flashback, a couple of minutes covering that game. Obviously, not too much again to say, but just a minute or two each. What were your thoughts on that Wrexham game?
Well, I thought, obviously you don't go into a game thinking that you're going to lose it, but they were title favourites. They come off of the back of a defeat to Chesterfield the night before, or the Tuesday before that. Talking to a lot of their fans in the pub beforehand, they were saying that their manager Phil Parkinson was under a lot of pressure, and both the owners were there that day. The documentary was coming out the following week, so that if Parkinson didn't get a performance out of the team, then his job could be under pressure. And for the Wrexham fans, they did get that performance. Once again, not helped by ourselves. They were all mistakes. You can look at each goal and say, yeah, we could have cut that out, but He was just relentless. I mean, they had their two wing backs virtually on our halfway line for the whole of the game, so we just couldn't get out. We couldn't. I mean, had changed the shape a little bit to match them up second half, but we gave away the penalty and then made another mistake towards the end, and it was just sobering really. And it was very much of an intimidating atmosphere. I mean, unlike Gateshead, where you could count the opposition fans if the game was that boring, but packed out 9,000 people there, and
It
we
was crazy.
down the front. 200 of us there, which was very good. You did feel like it was just I can compare that word, but a lot of noise around you. Even with one end out, it was very intimidating, even for the fans. So, but like Sean says, they've all played this level. They've all got over 1,000 appearances between them. So you should raise to that. You've got to raise your game. You've got to match that, haven't you? You've got to try and silence that home crowd and impose your game on them. And we didn't do it. And Hack spoke about it, and we did see a reaction. So hopefully, going forward, we can see that reaction again.
And Sean, any thoughts from yourself? Just a minute or so. I know you didn't manage to get to the game, but obviously you'll have some thoughts and opinions on it. So what about yourself?
Exactly. I mean, I could give you the same report from the Gateshead match yesterday, and it would pretty much mirror what happened at Wrexham.
Take out Campbell, put in Mullin. Take out Blackett, put in Palmer.
Exactly. And yeah, there's there's a mistake early on, gets punished. They go 1 up inside 5-10 minutes. Plan A's out the window. Everyone's looking at each other, going, "What on earth are we doing?" And they don't know what they do the rest of the match. Wasn't much of a shape change at Gateshead. There was obviously the shape change at Wrexham, but again, that didn't seem to work. So there was a plan B to sort of stop things getting any worse. And unfortunately, both games they did. They made substitutions, didn't do much. So yeah, I'll retract slightly my previous statement. Obviously, both the Wrexham and the Gateshead matches, the substitutions haven't worked because the game's already gone by the time the substitutions are made. And yeah, I think it was a bit deer in headlights. We knew that Wrexham was going to be hard. We'd spoken with Hack pre-season and said there will be certain matches we'll change to a back five. It was the fact that we changed to a back five when we were already 2 or 3-0 down at Wrexham is probably the thing that made you think, can't we just grind out a 0-0 from minute one instead? Because, I mean, 5 at the back probably wouldn't have helped the mistakes given the goals away. But again, it's that balance at the back. If you have got the left on the left, the right on the right, play all 3 centre-backs, put someone from midfield in defence, put Bivesh at right back if you have to. Do something, put Rory at right back. You've got plenty of options that you've used in some of the other games that you've experimented with. You've had a bunch of pre-season to do that as well. If you're going to pick the 4 or 5 teams that's scored bloody 20 goals yesterday between them, the firing far away teams. If you're going to set up shop, do that from the start and just think if we still get a pound in, then at least we can say, oh, it's because we played 5 at the back and we weren't playing our usual football. Why then play 4 at the back and have the usual attacking formation that can succeed defensively as well? Why have that when you could just as easily, stick 5 at the back because you're just going, oh yeah, we're not doing anything going forward, but we're going to set up like we can go forward and not really count down. So again, in summary, 4 Gateshead, see Wrexham, 4 Wrexham, see Gateshead. QED.
So, of course, finishing on from the slightly more dismal performances, I suppose you could say, if you're looking very negatively upon things, and accurately, I suppose, in one sense as well, from those 2 games in the last month, the big scoreline defeats, a little bit more of a positive turn. Looking, of course, at that bank holiday weekend, we did pick up 6 points against potential relegation candidates in Torquay United and Aldershot Town. Of course, the first game against Torquay did end in 1-0, and we'll cover that first. And Aldershot was a 3-1 win on the road. So Torquay, for me, was a bit of an improvement in terms of the structure. I think, our first and only clean sheet of the season is always something to be happy with. We did see a few new players coming into the fray as well. We saw the introduction of Corey Leons-Foster at the back, who did start off a little bit shaky, but managed to work his way into the game and shored up for at least the second half, which was very good to see. Could maybe provide a bit of a pivotal role in the defensive cover over the next few games. We'll wait and see how he's applied in this squad. But then Bhivesh Gurung as well, someone who most fans, many fans, probably the majority of fans haven't seen a lot of. I think he only made sub appearances last season. I think he might have started against Tunbridge in the cup, but yeah, not too much really in terms of his involvement from the last season from Bhivesh. But you know, in that game against Torquay, he did play really well, and he did manage to earn himself a start against Aldershot. And then as well, we look at the attack, and it was only a 1-0, but it was really nice to see the impact of James Alabi and Rory Deacon there, being able to thread him through, creating a lot of danger down the left-hand side in that game. Rory Deacon, of course, showing his more comfortable nature, I suppose you could say, in the National League. I think this style of play does suit him a little bit better in this league. And then feeding in James Alabi as well for his first professional goal for the club. So I do believe both you boys were at that game. And Sean, what are your thoughts on that Torquay match?
Yeah, I was on the comms and very much enjoyed Maidstone grinding out a proper hard-earned win. The first half, very fortunate to go in at 0-0. A few chances down the throat of Merson that he kept out. Andrews with a couple of clear-cut chances he really should have scored for Torquay and put them way ahead. It easily could have been at least 3 for Torquay in that first half with, as we mentioned on air, they'd have had better strikers. And I managed to correct Darren in the end and say that if they'd have had James Alabi up front, for longer, then they would have scored a hatful. Mentioned the substitutions not working in the big wallopings that we've got away from home. They clearly worked miraculously well against Torquay because Alabi came on with Deacon knocking on the door very often and finally deciding to square it to someone else instead of shooting himself and providing Alabi with that goal. So, yeah, really hard ground out victory against Torquay. Some real poor moments again at the back, lots of mistakes. Cooley came on for a little bit at the end and seemed to be probably the most solid of the 3 centre-backs we had on the day overall. And that sort of continued into the Aldershot game as well. But for me, Torquay performance was solid. It was another home win. Deacon on the left, trying to provide, as he was top assist maker at that point, I think, in the division, probably changed by now with a hatful that the goal getters
Surprised
got
if Notts don't have a top assister somewhere with Staff
exactly.
doing what he's doing.
Exactly, for example. But yeah, top performance overall. You know, should have lost the first half 4-0, would have won the second half 6-0. But fortunately, it wasn't that entertaining. It was that nervous. But we got the 3 points, thank goodness.
Indeed. And what about you, Nigel? I'm pretty certain you were in attendance as well. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, just to echo that, really. I mean, it was very sloppy first half. Of course, we didn't have Sam Corn at Torquay, so we missed him in the middle of the park. Just give us that balance in the middle first half. But second half, I think it was, you know, a performance that we saw a lot of towards the back end of last season. You know, really camping in the opponent's half and getting a lot of balls in, getting him in from wide, getting balls over the top. You know, we definitely tested the keeper. I think, Sean, you said on commentary, Rory had 4 shots, 4 assists, or 4 shots where he cut in from that side and tested the keeper before he actually did square that ball. So, you know, definitely playing a lot more like the Maidstone way of what we're used to. And as Sean said, we grinded out the win in the end, and it was good scenes at the end with Alabi getting his goal. I think it was 87 minutes. So again, towards the end there, and we saw the game out. And Torquay were disappointing for me. I mean, we said about our heads dropping. I mean, their heads dropped in that second half, and they didn't have the same effort going forward. I don't think. I mean, I know the manager spoke to that post match, but we're saying that about our long journeys. But of course, Torquay have that every single time they do an away trip. So you know, it's something they should be used to. But I think we just sort of wore them down in the end, and we just imposed our game on them, and they didn't really have an answer. So it was a good 1-0 win.
Yep, I think so. And as you say there, there are teams in this division, Gateshead, for example, and I haven't been fantastic in terms of their results this season, but they do go away to grounds and they do manage to impose their style of play. Unfortunately, haven't quite got the results until, of course, playing Maidstone this weekend. But, teams like Yeovil and stuff, they've got more excuses than your average team, and not Yeovil, sorry, Torquay. They've got more excuses than your average team, and they don't always let that affect them. There was nothing like that from their management. I did watch that interview that you referenced there, Nigel, and it was that kind of Jekyll and Hyde performance, really, wasn't it? And that first half from them was quite prosperous. Missed some decent chances. As you say, probably could have been a couple goals up, and then we could have been even more up in the second half. So, to come over 1-0 there isn't really much to write home about, but at the end of the day, it's a results business. So, going into the Aldershot game off the back of a win was always going to get the hype up. And there was, I think, 408 Maidstone fans there on the day. And I mean, me and Nigel, we travelled to that game together, in the pub beforehand. Great little atmosphere in there. It was a very small pub, but it was nice nonetheless. And then, of course, going over to that game, I think there were 1,400 Aldershot fans and about 400 of us. So, we had a decent amount of the percentage there. But I think for vast majority of the game, we outsung them. We really got behind the team, and that 5 to 10 minutes or 5 or 6 minutes in the second half where we got those 3 goals was absolutely exhilarating, and definitely the best spell we've seen this season from us. Just everything we touched in that start to the second half really turned to gold, didn't it, Nigel?
Yeah, it did. I mean, it was similar in the first half, I think, to the Torquay, where they did have a lot of the possession. But I think what we did different at the Torquay game, we counterpunch. We sort of had more opportunities. I mean, Corn had a opportunity in the first 5 minutes on his restart, after his suspension, which was a surprise for us all, because we all thought it was a free game ban. So when we saw his name on the team sheet, I think it certainly gave the team a lift.
Yeah.
And we did have a penalty shout. I know you thought it was a penalty, Joseph.
Yeah, I do. I still do.
And, it's one of those ones that you've seen them given, haven't you?
Exactly. That's the thing.
Like, what happened in the Premier League this,
100% say it's
weekend.
soft. Definitely say it's soft, but you do see him given. And, the Henry Woods one that was against Dorking, there was very little in that. Just a foot out, kind of side to side, and the player just goes ping, launches himself, and that's it. And, I think there was a bit more in that foul one, or for Wole. You're going to have to correct me on how I say that. Sean?
We believe it's for Wole. We believe it's for Wole.
Wole.
Paul did speak with Tom Hadler at some point beforehand. It's not direct from the horse's mouth, but at least from one of the foals adjacent for Wole, if that's not too much of a tongue twister.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I definitely think we was sort of in that game more in the first half. And as you say, we had that mad 6 minutes, wasn't it? Well, 7 if you count Amaluza, obviously. Yeah. Amaluza doing what we know Amaluza does, scoring an absolute worldie goal. I don't think anyone can would have stopped that. But, it was just again, it was just very similar, but it's just us imposing our game plan, isn't it? It's just us doing what Maystone's about. It's like giving our DNA, and Hack said that. He's not going to change away from that. He's gonna get players working hard, playing to the system, winning your own individual battles, and then coming through at the end and getting the result. And again, it was a proper sort of like away performance. You're going to get teams that are going to soak up. You've got to soak up pressure. You're going to get teams that, especially at being at home, they're going to, the crowd's behind them. I know they had some issues there with the management and the ownership, and it was did get a little bit toxic towards the end. But early doors they came in with some expectation. Again, it's a team that's going to be in and around them this season, so they also definitely did see it as an opportunity. And we just was resolute, and we just was there for each other. The hard work was there, and then I say that 5-6 minute spell where we got the goals, and then we just saw the game out. It was a good performance.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, that DNA is so crucial to a lot of fans. That is the reason why a lot of fans stick with their clubs. They've seen how they play. They kind of fall in love with that play, that philosophy, that thing that Maidstone have got has always been heart. Maidstone fans will always chase that passion from the players and, that desire to not switch it up too much and just, battle through the tough period and come out on top in the end. And that's exactly what we saw in the Aldershot game. We did see a slightly ropey first half, as you say, that we saw in the Torquay game. There was a good couple of opportunities. I think it's Effiong had a good couple chances as well in that first half. And it was just, kind of seeing the game into that second half and coming out all guns blazing straight away, getting players into the box, which was something we definitely didn't do much in the first half. But we did manage to turn it around. And in the end, a great result, 3-1, and this is against an Aldershot team who haven't been brilliant this season, but you can only beat what's in front of you. And as I said, Sean, you weren't at the game, but have you got any thoughts or opinions yourself on that one?
Yes, great result against Aldershot. In terms of the overall philosophy and DNA, it's built into what we see previously. Of course, that's what makes up your helix and whatever DNA stands for. Can't remember. It's too long of words. But yeah, the statistics from last season at least bear out that we're very much a second half side in terms of our goal scoring antics, because I always banged on last season about how often we would be ahead in the first half. That would get the head down of the average Joe that we're playing against in the second half, and we would just, go on and get more. So if we're level at halftime and not losing, which we also had a lot of that last season, we're generally able to go and turn the screw against sides. And we did that against Torquay. We did that earlier on in the season against York with those 2 goals in a couple of minutes. And then with Aldershot, it was pretty much the ultimate sort of collection highlights package of just, like 3 and 6 minutes for us to get those goals all done and just get the game pretty much sealed from there, because I don't think they created too much of note, Aldershot, after Amaluza had got that one back straight away for them. So for me, Aldershot, very simple one, just working on what we always do. As long as we're in the game, start that second half like it's the last 45 minutes you're ever going to play, go out there, earn the win, and they've done that. And in terms of, looking back at all of the games we've had so far, 5 of our 7 games that we've now played have been against teams in the bottom 9 of the division. And we're still sat in the top half. 4 of the 7 match days we've had, including yesterday, we're actually sat in the top half of the table. And, you can quote me on a couple of things I've said on here before. I've said Aldershot are eventually going to fall foul. That would have been great probably about 2:55 yesterday, because, of course, indeed, that would have made even more sense, at 2:55 yesterday afternoon before they went and beat Barnet, who have been top half.
Yeah, that was a strange one.
Long, very strange one again. Seeing sides losing so often. And then, so Aldershot got their first win. Gateshead got their first win. So there's always moments in the season early on that can change things. And yesterday might have been that for a couple of them. So I know Gateshead are out the drop zone from memory. Aldershot's still just about in there, probably goal difference or a point. But, yeah, exactly. It usually is. I mean, not that it's going to be good for us at the moment, but we'll get there. But yeah, Aldershot, not great overall, as Nigel alluded to, with everybody protesting seemingly afterwards. I did say that I think they have potential for their luck to run out this season for them, maybe. And yeah, you've got to keep sides at bay. You've got to keep beating the teams below you to manifest where you want to end up higher up the table. So if you beat all the teams in the bottom half, you're not going to be in the bottom half, because all the teams that are much further up are going to lose 2 teams in the bottom half on occasion. We're going to talk about who we've got the rest of this month in a moment or two, and there's the odd surprise in there. There's not many, but there is the odd surprise in there that when you look back at them, you go, there is hope for Maidstone in this coming month. But certainly, looking back at the Aldershot result, certainly the standout from that last month or so, but we've certainly got enough to hold our heads up high overall, because we're still in that top half. And if you'd have said you'd be top half after 7 games, regardless of the points tally, regardless of the performances, hand off snap, exactly, job done.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned there, we'll talk about the upcoming games, and of course we're ending going into this month, I suppose, on a little bit of a low after the Gateshead performance yesterday. Obviously, the time of recording is Sunday evening, so any references we do make to yesterday will be the Gateshead game. But the next 4 games, there is 4 more games in September for the Stones. We've got 3 actually at home, which is perhaps a good omen there, and potentially quite prosperous after our away form in the longer distance ones. But we've got on Saturday coming, the 10th of September, we've got Solihull Moors at home. Then we've got Wealdstone at home on the Tuesday night, so another quick turnover there. Then we've got Bromley away on Saturday the 17th. And then we've got Chesterfield at home on the 24th, a week later. So we've got, I do believe, all teams in the top 8 at the moment. Bromley are in 8th, Wealdstone are in 6th, Solihull are in 4th, and Chesterfield are top of the division. So it's not looking great on paper at the moment, but we'll come to you next, Nigel. What are you expecting to get from this month? Obviously, I think I did a poll a couple of weeks ago about the upcoming month and what sort of points people are looking at. And the majority of people, I think, put that 4 to 6 bracket. I was definitely one of those. But after Gateshead, has your opinion changed? I know you was a little bit optimistic about the coming month.
Yeah, I'm still optimistic, really. I mean, like Sean said, there will be a game that we're going to beat a team that's higher up. I've no doubt about that. We haven't all got crystal balls. We can't see when that's going to be, but and it doesn't look great with our next game coming up against Solihull. We banged in 5 goals yesterday against Altrincham, who we've already played, and looked a decent side opening game of the season. So yeah, but yeah, I'm hopeful. You just got to go into the game and just. It's like I said before. We've got to put our game onto it. Impose our game on them. Let them worry about us. Don't. We're now 7 games into the season, so it's not early season yet. We've got to start putting our imprint on the game. Hack's talked again, and he said it again yesterday. He's still looking to bring players in. There's a debate on the forums and on the Facebook group. Why are we not getting players in? And when Hack keeps saying it, maybe it's a bit of kidology. Maybe he's trying to say it to give the existing players, the boost that they need.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. I think he's got players in from before. We know he's throughout the last few seasons he's been in charge. His track record of getting loan players in and actually performing for us has been quite good. I mean, I do think with the Vincent one, it's a bit strange, really. I think maybe with Jerome getting that injury, sort of like the last pre-season game, it was kind of like it wasn't one that was planned. Obviously, Jerome would have been a starter, and he said that in all these post-match interviews that the players that he had got out that would have been starters, so he wouldn't have been looking for a left back. So it's probably a case of he's just phoned around managers that found out some players that were from these EFL clubs that were looking, the teams were looking for him to go out on loan, and he thought, okay, he knows Danny Cowley, get him in for a few games, and it's just not worked out. It just doesn't been what he wanted. But hopefully now, with a few weeks behind him, he sort of looked at players and he can get somebody in that just for a 3-month loan.
Yeah.
Jerome said he's going to be out for another 8 weeks, so a 3-month loan just to come in and get into the squad. And any other players that you might have targeted, you might have been waiting for clubs from the EFL to do their business, and like he said before, in interviews before the season, that there will be that drip on effect as the Premier League and down from the EFL, and players will become available. So there's always that to get players in. A week behind us. I'm still hopeful. Probably not against Solihull, but you never know, do you? Football's not played on paper. Look at from all levels down. See teams get a spanking one week, and you think, oh, that's it, they're hopeless, they're not going to do anything, and then they go and pull all the stops out and get a result against the next team. So you just got to go take each game as it comes, and we go to Bromley as well. That they're bragging that they're undefeated this season. So what better way to go there? They're playing 3G pitch. There's going to be no surprises there. There's a few ex-Bromley players in our team now, so I'm sure they're going to want to go there and prove a point, especially Alabi, with the way he was treated
Yeah,
towards the end of the
yeah,
season, So, it's just, Wheelstone, I know they're up there now and you say they're in sixth place, but I don't think that's where they're going to finish.
no,
I saw the game today and it didn't impress me. I mean, they play a very similar style to us, and the manager was, could have been a clone of Hack. You're saying, we haven't got the most talented squad, but what we have got, we've got hard work. We only train 2 nights a week, but we make the most of that time. And there's an opportunity there. We're going to be at home, so they're not going to have that many fans come on a Tuesday evening, are they? So there's plenty of opportunities there, and I just think you just got to go into the game thinking positive.
well, it's nice to have an optimistic twist to counter my quite common pessimism. As I said in my Gateshead preview, I'm often the pessimist when it comes to football. I'm always, thinking draw, maybe loss, but in the back of my head, I'm hoping win. Just that kind of false confidence I give myself sometimes. So it's nice to have the opposite side of the table. And I'm just looking at Solihull's results actually, and they've had some good results. Don't get me wrong; they've had some good results. Obviously, 5-1 against Altrincham, that's good. But they conceded 3 to Scunthorpe, beat them 4-3. Scunthorpe are just an absolute mess at the moment. They drew 1-1 against Southend. They beat Aldershot 4-1. We beat them 3-1. So, they drew 1-1 against York City. We beat them 2-1. So, it will be interesting to see how it plays out. As you say, I do think there is going to be at least one result in this upcoming month in which everybody kind of goes, car, but, we'll take that. That's nice. Come on, that'll spur us on to the next one. But Sean, I'm assuming you're going to play the somewhat middle ground out of myself and Nigel in this conversation. So what about you? What are you thinking for
Yes,
September?
you two are good cop or bad cop, and I get to be good cop and bad cop.
All right, cop.
Which is all right cop. Yes, cop load of that. If you're looking at, because we're looking at the 3 home games, Bromley away would really be quite a surprise because they're 10 points from 12 at home from their start this season. And that's the main reason they're just tickling the playoffs at the moment. So that would be the big surprise if it was Bromley. I think the one that most people would think would be attainable is Wealdstone at home, because as Nigel's pointed out a couple of parts already, it's a Tuesday night at home. It's not too far for them to travel. I know us getting over there can be a bit of a pain in the backside because it seems to be the other extra bit of London on the end of London, on the side of London for some reason.
Little point to make as well. Gateshead, they got a result against Gateshead Wealdstone. They beat them 1-0, but they were terrible. They were absolutely terrible in that game. Gateshead played them off the park completely. So, sometimes the results can be deceiving, but just to add to your point there, Sean, do continue.
Yeah, thank you. So in the month of September, we're basically playing Gateshead's August in September. They've played loads of sides in the top half, and they've got a few draws and obviously the majority losses, although 50-50 technically, but we'll move on from that. They've ground out some draws. We mentioned 3 of 4 at home, which, our home form is generally something that we pride ourselves on. You'd imagine that Wealdstone would be the one we'd get it from. Solihull just score goals for fun, as you've mentioned. That's going to be one that I would find the most difficult of the 4 games we play the rest of the month. Wealdstone, in terms of how they travel, they've been to Gateshead and to Oldham and put in some good performances and got wins there. Bromley, as I've already mentioned, 10 of the 12 points they've got there. They've the first goal they conceded at home yesterday, actually, against Eastleigh when they went behind early on. And then Chesterfield are just consistent. Shamanga doesn't always have to play. I know we've heard a lot about it the last 24 hours about the top sides of the National League, the front line that they have. I think it was 2 or 3. I think like Sabara and another one was missing for Solihull yesterday. Shamanga was completely out of the squad because of the alleged transfer that never happened for Shamanga. But yeah, Chesterfield been to Altrincham and Oldham recently and got wins there. Drew at Notts County as well. That's not to be sniffed at, of course. So yeah, it's a very hard run for Maidstone. But if we're going to be hopefully a pleasant surprise in there, I think I personally on your poll, Joe, I think I put 7 to 9 because bear in mind that included Gateshead as well. So I'll do a little bit of maths and I'll drop myself down. If I can change my vote, please, sir.
Late vote accepted.
Thank you very much. I'll put myself back down to the 4 to 6 mark now because I think there would be, it's going to be closer to 4. I think 1 win and 1 draw and a couple of defeats. I'd hope it would be Wilston. I mean, frankly, I'd hope it's all 4 with bloody win. But yeah, it's likely to be Wilston. If that comes out as a draw, then if we beat either Solihull or Chesterfield at home, that for me is the sort of result where you go, no, we're definitely going to be safe this season now, rather than, oh, we could be safe. Because if we get one of those marquee teams beaten at home, then there's a lot more confidence going into those other home games. If we could beat Solihull straight away, for example, and have another immediate response like we did against Torquay, it's going to have to be minute 1 that we're tuned in from, because we weren't against Torquay. And if we played like we did first half against Torquay, we will be 4-0 down at half time. There is no question of that.
Definitely.
No matter who they play up front, that will happen. So you just imagine how it would feel if we could get a result, get a win potentially against Solihull, and just think how good our home form could continue to be for the rest of the season. And, any win that we get in those 3, and if we do get one, I think that, we'd be getting closer to the 15, 18 points come, mid-October, and just keep building. And just to pick up on your other point you made a few minutes ago, Nigel, about Vincent leaving and Jerome's injury. I think we've been hearing that it's probable that it's the FA Cup qualifying game, sort of mid-October. So it seems to be about 5 or 6 weeks away now. So it would be good, if we did get someone in on that front. That for me is the only transfer that's needed. I still think there's enough within the squad. I personally think it's the kidology from Hack, but we do still need a left back that he likes, and he's had more than 5 minutes to go, oh, where am I getting him from? To actually know what shop he's going in. That was a Christmas Eve petrol station, bunch of flowers.
Yeah, that was the night before your anniversary, wasn't it?
Exactly. Look pretty, smell nice, get them home, and they've wilted before midnight, like bloody pumpkin and Cinderella. But yeah, he will find something to cover this next month, 6 weeks. And then Jerome will be back, having built up his fitness in some more behind closed doors games. And I think that we should get there will be one standout result. I don't see us going through an unbeaten run. There'll be one win in there, and the rest is going to be we're going to be a bit doing this in a month's time. But I think we should be a bit more positive by then, because we'll still have a lot more points than a lot of teams below us still. So if we've dropped from 12th to maybe 15th, I'd take that by the end of September as well.
Yeah. Well, I was just looking at that points tally actually, and as you say, even if we only managed to get 3 points, let alone 4 or more or whatever, even if we got 3 points in the month of September, that'll leave us with 13 points from 11 games, still averaging more than a point a game, and that would leave the majority of the relegation zone at the moment a good few points below us, because I don't really see, Halifax, Altrincham, Scunthorpe, Aldershot, Yeovil picking up too many wins in that time. So, I think we still will be in and around that mid to lower mid-table by the end of the month. So I think every fan can kind of look at that and go, you know what, the results haven't been fantastic, but in the grand scheme of things, look at where we are. If we finished here at the end of the season, I think most people would be happy with that for a kind of bedding in season. So unless anybody's got anything else to add about the rest of September, I think it's probably time to wrap things up.
Yeah, no, I think everything's been said. I mean, you just
Well,
got to keep the faith.
Player of the month.
Oh, great shout. Player
That's
of the
why
month.
That's why I write things. That's why I write
see,
things down. That's why I
Sean,
write things down.
Sean, I talk, Sean writes. That's kind of how life seems to work and revolve around this channel. But yeah, as you say, player of the month. We'll start with you then, Sean, since you've so rightly remembered it. Who was your player of the month vote for August?
I haven't got one.
There we go.
No, cool. Of course I have. Of course I have. Yeah, it was a toss up between Deeks and the Wand. And for me, it was Booty. He's assisted a lot of the assists.
Yeah.
Corn's had the goals. Deeks has had the assists, but they've all started from Booty creating and breaking up play. We still need some balance at the back. So, and that we have in front of the defence has also contributed to a lot less goals being conceded. And they've been very solid between one another in the midfield. And they've all complemented each other, that 3 of the 4 or 5 that sort of triumvirate around the focal point of Barham. So for my money, it was a toss of a coin, frankly, but it was Booty that started things. I know in some leagues, I know in MLS, they've managed to put down the assists as about 15 different people who ever put the whole move in. So it'll be X and Y for Z on how they record things. So Lord knows what fantasy league is going to be like if you follow MLS like I do. Everybody be getting bloody points every minute for just breathing near the ball. But yes, in summary, Booty for assisting the assists.
Nigel, what about you? Who's your August player of the month?
Well, I've gone for Roy Deacon. I think he's he's got two goals, has he now? No, he hasn't got goals, but he's got the assists, and I think he got an assist yesterday as well. He took the corner that led to Joe's goal. So
4 now, yeah.
To me, it's Deacon this season is playing more like the player we associate with Roy Deacon when he played at Sutton against us all those years ago. What was it, 4 or 5 years ago? So and he's playing more on the left side this season. I mean, we've said before that his preferred side is the right, but he hasn't really, considering we're missing Luque on that side, he's kind of slotted into that role, and he's got the experience of playing at this level. I mean, we won't know. It's like the old pub debate, isn't it? Would Luque have made a good start? You'd hope so, but Deacon's definitely got that experience playing on that side, and he's linked up well with Barham and Sam Corn for the goals at York. So, for me, it's Roy Deacon.
Well, on the coin toss, unfortunately, Sean, I've landed with Nigel as well. Regan, fantastic player, of course. Very, very much instrumental, especially in that Aldershot game, talking about the pre-assists and things, just, giving Christy Patterson that opportunity to be able to fly down the right-hand side and do what he does. It often does come from Regan, the Wand, Booty, of course, in the midfield. But for me, there's been games this season where, unfortunately, not everybody has turned up. York, for me, was a really tough game, especially that first hour or so. And the only player for me that was shining in that game the whole time was Rory Deacon. And then, of course, the assist yesterday. I know obviously it's not a result or anything like that, but it's just something that, he seems to just be involved. He seems to kind of create things. And again, setting up a Larby for that last kind of 5-minute winner against Torquay and just running the whole game offensively for us himself in that game. It's just been times where, when the whole team's down and seemingly not really getting picked up, he's the one leading by example this season. And especially in that front line, it has been needed at times. So, for me, I think both of them are more than justifiable, but I've just opted for Deacon because I'm a bit of a stat padder. So, I think we've all got pretty good justifications for those. And hopefully everybody has enjoyed the podcast, covering what has been a pretty up and down month in terms of results and looking ahead to what, again, could be another up and down or potentially up or potentially down month. We never know. We'll find out on our podcast towards the end of the month. But thank you all very much for watching. There will be another podcast coming out, hopefully the day after you see this one. It should be coming out Tuesday with a very special guest. Unfortunately, none of these boys are. Leave the anticipation there, but a mystery, somewhat missing man, I suppose you could say, will be joining me for a little interview / podcast. So do keep your eyes peeled for that. Do like this video if you did enjoy it, and of course do subscribe to the channel if you do like this sort of content and want to keep up to date. So again, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you Sean and Nigel for both joining me,
Thank you.
and we'll catch you in the next one.